Hello everyone. Hope everyone's doing great. If this is your first time visiting my channel, my name is Unwana, and every week I try to share interesting content on things that I'm implementing in my life to improve my personal finance and also grow my wealth. So if this is your first time here, thank you very much for being here. And for my old subscribers, I do thank you all very much. So the topic today is why you need an emergency fund, okay, and also why you should start with at least $1,000. So I was just doing some basic research today, and I found out that over 50% of consumers right now cannot afford a $500 emergency. So if you had an emergency today that required $500 without using a credit card or borrowing money, most people will not be able to cover such an expense, and that's very, very sad. We live in a very prosperous nation with very high income. Unfortunately, everyone goes through the same situation where we live paycheck to paycheck regardless of income because of our mindset and how we've been programmed. So having an emergency fund, okay, is the foundation of your financial health. Excuse me. So you have to have an emergency fund to mitigate, situations where you have an emergency, okay? An emergency fund is not something where you put money for an investment, okay? An emergency fund is a fund where you put money aside that will come in handy when you really need the money, all right? So most financial gurus and financial analysts tell you need to have at least 3 to 6 months worth of an emergency cushion. All right, so how do you calculate how much you need? So basically what you do is you take a look at your basic expenses, okay, in terms of housing, food, just the basic necessities, okay? So let's assume that every month your basic necessities come to $2,000 a month, okay? For some it might be less, for some it might be more. In this example, we're just going to use $2,000. So basically you want to set aside 3 to 6 months worth of $2,000. So if it's a 3-month emergency fund, so that's 3 times 2, so you have $6,000. Or if you want to do 6 months worth, then it would be $12,000. So you want to make sure you have at least a minimum, okay, of $6,000 in a liquid account where if you needed it in the case of an emergency, you have instant access to it. So what are some of the emergencies that can actually occur to you? I mean, there are so many emergencies, but I just listed a few here which might probably joggle your memory. Number one, you could lose your job. Just like what we're going through right now, okay, we're going through a health pandemic, we're going through a financial crisis, a lot of people have been laid off, a lot of people have had their hours cut, a lot of businesses have closed down, and the list goes on and on and on. And now we're getting close to an election year, and only God knows what's going to happen after the election, in terms of businesses and jobs, etc. So one of those things that an emergency fund is good for is if you lost your job, how are you going to take care of your family? How are you going to take care of your expenses? All right, whether you have a family or not, you still need to survive, you still need to live. Okay, this is where an emergency fund will come into play and be able to help you, weather the situation. Number two, you might have house repairs, okay? You might have a situation where you need to fix something with your house, okay? The furnace could crap out on you, okay? Or something could go out on you, okay? Your garbage disposal could go, these are things that might create a low strain on your finances, okay? So having an emergency fund can help you during a situation like that. Let's try another example. How about health issues, okay? You might have a health emergency, all right? Just like we're going through right now, a lot of people are sick, okay? People are not just suffering from, the health pandemic. I won't say the name here, but there are other illnesses that people are experiencing right now, okay? Back in 2017, I had double lobe pneumonia, okay? I had septic shock, I had acute kidney injury, and I was hospitalized for a couple months. I was in the hospital, all right? I barely survived. But during that period where I was in the hospital, guess what? I had to rely on what's called short-term disability and long-term disability to tide me through that period. Now, if I had an emergency fund, okay, then I wouldn't have had to rely so much on short-term disability insurance. Don't get me wrong, there's a reason why we have short-term disability insurance and long-term disability insurance, okay, to mitigate situations like this. But in my case, in my experience, you know, if I had an emergency fund, life would have been a little better. Now, because of what happened in 2017, I am still paying the price of that today, because I have the medical bills to deal with, and I also have had issues where I couldn't meet some of my obligations, and I'm just trying to play catch up right now. And those things eventually affect your credit, because if you have a medical bill and you're not able to pay for it, guess what? It goes to collections. From collections, it gets reported to your credit, and then it ruins your credit. So this is another example why you need to have an emergency fund, okay, to tide you through situations where, you know, you're unemployed, or your car breaks down, or your house needs repairs, or even educational needs. Okay, you might have a situation where your kid is in school and they need some money for their tuition. What are you gonna do? That's an emergency in my books. Okay, so these are some of the few things that you need to mitigate against by having an emergency fund. So what do you do to set one up? So the first thing you want to do is you want to set up a goal. Okay, so depending on what your monthly expenses are, that would be a starting point for you. So in the previous example, I said if you are an individual where your monthly expense is $2,000 a month, then you can set your goals based off of that, because that's just the bare minimum for you to survive. Okay, then you want to set up a budget. Okay, it all starts with having a budget. You have to get organized. All right, once you get organized, then everything runs like a system, runs like a machine. Okay, maybe once in a while you might have to tweak your budget, but the goal right now is to try and save up at least 3 to 6 months worth of expenses, okay, in a high yield or a savings account somewhere where you have that there as a safeguard. Okay, so ideally what you should shoot for right now, if you don't have an emergency fund, you should shoot for at least saving $1,000. So this should be your goal going forward. Save your first $1,000 in a savings account, and then you can now start striving to get the three months, the 6 months, or the 1 year. There are people that I know that have 3 years worth of emergency fund. Okay, which means if they lost their jobs today, or something happened to the economy, they can survive for 3 years without going to work. That's where everybody should be. That's where I'm striving to be. So all the topics and things that I'm sharing with you, okay, my nice subscribers, is things that I'm learning, okay, mistakes that I have made, so that you don't make the same mistake. Okay, and then finally you want to cut your expenses. All right, you must cut expenses. It's only for a short time. Okay, I'm not saying you have to be stingy, you have to be miserly, but if you cut down on your expenses just for the short term, so you can build up your cash reserves, and then everything will be, great. All right, you must be disciplined and you must be focused. All right, so this is all I have for you today. I thank you very much for subscribing to my channel, and please, as usual, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and smash that like button. Okay, don't forget that, and also hit the notification bell so you get notified of my other videos. Okay, please spend some time on my channel, check out my channel, you might find something interesting there, and I'll see you on my next video. Take care, bye bye.